Hi there, how y'all doing tonight? My name is Misaki, and welcome back to my channel. So Valentine's Day is right around the corner, and because of that, I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about yaoi, or BL if you want to be more accurate about it. I could talk about traditional romance anime and what my thoughts of them are, but I wanted to do something different. I'm pretty sure someone else is gonna get that covered. So I prefer to talk about something a little more saucy. So strap yourselves, ladies and gents, because I'm going to tell you a little story about how this old weeb quickly went into a beautiful metamorphosis, turning them into a Fujin. Yes, I know I wrote Fujoshi in the title, but that's mostly because it's the most identifiable term. I hope that's okay. But let's continue. So when I first started getting into anime again, around my teen years, I had quite the old selection of anime I started out with. Unlike normal people, my degenerate ass started by watching, you guessed it, ecchi. What? You thought I would say hentai? Come on, I'm not that much of a degenerate, am I? Anyway, these shows all allowed this puberty-filled dork to experience a lot of new and interesting things. And one of those things was BL. So as you might have guessed from the title, this video is gonna be all about my personal story with the genre. How I got into BL, including my first yaoi shows I've watched, how I became obsessed with it, then sick of it, making me stop for a really long time, then coming back to it again, concluding how I feel about it in the present. So buckle your seatbelts, close your doors to keep unholy things being seen or heard by innocent civilians, and enjoy this long-ass story of the rise and fall of a retired Fuji. So my beginning came from the first BL I've ever watched, which is considered one of the most popular ones ever adapted into an anime, and that is Sekaiichi Hatsukoi, or World's Greatest First Love. Now, isn't the author a little bit cocky coming up with a title like that? No. This shit, at least to teenage me, was exactly what the title gave me. At that time, I had never felt more emotionally connected to a romantic story in my entire life, guys. And it wasn't from a lack of trying. I remember when I was younger, my girlfriends and I were really into some corny romantic stories like High School Musical, and especially Twilight. I forced myself to watch them and even lied to myself that I enjoyed them. But deep down, I knew that I didn't. Whenever my friends would go crazy, seeing Wolf Boy take off his shirt or stare at the bedazzled vampire, all I felt in those movie theaters and slumber parties with my friends was just a big old fat So I have this anime written down in what I like to call Anime Scroll Zero. Before I had decided to take my anime reviews too seriously, my first 20 anime I wrote down in a piece of scrolled up parchment. It was anime number 17, which says, "This beautiful, magnificent, heartwarming heck of an anime opened my heart. These 3 love stories made my face go like a tomato." Oh my god, younger me, how corny you were. I finished it off with 4 little hearts. My writing skills definitely improved with time, guys, I promise you that. When I was a prepubescent child, having my first experiences with love, I got heartbroken so many times at that age that I had completely given up hope and any concept of love, romance for myself. I saw it as disgusting and stupid. But then, this adorable story of a young teen falling in love with his senpai came in my life. And seeing him be in love with him for so many years, stepping out of his life until reunited 10 years later, with all those cute moments of confessions and pure sincere love, guys, it made this pure old Grinch heart of mine grow 3 times as big. I'm sure everybody has that moment in their life at least once, when your heart pounds hard and you feel your face blush deeply from embarrassment and, other things. That was Sekaiichi Hatsukoi for me. It made me believe in love again. Looking back at it now, obviously it's an extremely unrealistic love story. but it was just so pure, raw, with sincere moments that it genuinely, finally melted my cold heart and made me believe in the power of love again. And with that, my gateway into Fujin Hell began. From then on, yaoi became a drug to me. At that time, nothing gave me more serotonin in my brain than seeing men be romantic, or spicy, with each other. So I would watch any piece of animated BL that I could find. Naturally, the second yaoi that I came across was Sekaiichi's predecessor, Junjo Romantica. The stories from Junjo Romantica are completely different from one another, in the sense that these three pairs all have different lives and work different fields. Not to mention that even if they do know each other, they barely interact in the show. So in my journal, this is the review that I wrote. I liked it, but Sekaiichi is still number one for me. It's a good yaoi, but I feel a little bit sad watching it. I don't know why. Interesting. So that's where it started for me. Anyway, one thing that I like about this one more than Sekaiichi is that the characters are not too proud to admit that they're in love. They accept it. But what I didn't like is the fact that the age gaps between characters are really big, which can be seriously awkward at times. But I liked it a bunch overall. Very erotic. This entry is pretty interesting, not gonna lie. So there's two things that I take from this that caught my attention the most. One is the fact that I said the yaoi made me feel sad, but I didn't know why. Well, now that I've grown up, I definitely figured it out. And that time, even though I really like romantic anime, a few of them, for some reason, made me feel really depressed because I envied those relationships that the characters had. It was a very conflicting thing to me. I was really happy to see the characters being all cute and wholesome with each other, but at the same time, in my heart, I sometimes felt this deep melancholy. I wanted to be in a loving relationship too. I wanted to be swept off my feet, and sweep others as well. Not to mention other more superficial feelings that is normal for a young teenager to have. I remember really struggling with that because I felt guilty for feeling that way as well. I just wanted to be happy for the characters. But somehow, with certain shows, I just couldn't. The good thing, however, is that this particular anime didn't leave me with these emotions too deeply. But I do believe that's when it all started. Another thing that I thought was really interesting is that this anime was the first to ever introduce me to the concept of being in a relationship with someone much older than you. Or much younger. It's a part of growing up, I believe. I mean, a 12-year-old can seem like too much of a child when you're already 15. But that's because you're still developing. Your bodies are in the process of growing. So of course you'll feel that way, but I never really thought what it was like for adults. I learned, starting with this anime, how everyone matures differently. Two people who are 20 years old could have developed completely different. So one could be much more adult and grown up than the other. The concept of dating someone 17 years older than you is still pretty gross to me, however. But for some people, it really works. It's difficult, of course, especially with the evidence that certain shows like 90 Day Fiancé gives us. But I do believe it is possible. Just not my thing. My personal preference today is an age gap between 4 to 10 years. But that's not an exact science. Never was, never will. Everybody is really that different. So they all deserve a chance, regardless of age. I was obsessed with these two series for a long ass time. I didn't even know there was any more yaoi out there. I didn't search for it either. All I knew was that I wanted more of these two series. More! The only thing that I did for the beginning of my Fujin phase was keep rewatching clips of these two shows and other yaoi related fan content on YouTube, and looking at yaoi images on the internet. So eventually, because I knew future seasons were unpredictable to happen, I started reading the manga of these two series. They were fine, I suppose, but it just wasn't as satisfactory as watching the anime. Not to mention, I need to spend more brain cells with manga because it requires reading. That's how I've always felt and feel towards manga. I only read it because I wanted to see more content. But all I kept thinking when I read every chapter, even when I finally saw some uncensored goods, was, damn, I can't wait to see this animated. Which is sad on its own. But even more sad when I did a little bit of research on both series and discovered that the mangaka only ever publishes chapters of her yaoi 3 times a fucking year! And that's if you're lucky! I'm honestly shocked she became so successful in a society that's constantly pressured to work to death. But yeah, it was really difficult to be notified whenever a new chapter was published. Especially because I didn't know how I could get notified for something like that. And she did it so rarely that I kept losing track on where the hell I was in the story, or what chapter I read last, that eventually I ran out of patience and dropped both series. It's a shame, it really is. Guys, neither of these series are done yet. Junjo Romantica started in 2003, dude. 2003! And we only have 25 volumes until now. I mean, I used to be super pissed about it before, but these days it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Since I really don't like nor condone Japan's culture of working to death. But still, 3 chapters just doesn't feel like a lot. And I'm sorry if that sounds mean or ignorant. Like I said, I'm conflicted within myself to this day. But alas, eventually I came across more yaoi in my life. But before that, I had to face a fight with a deadly demon. A monster so vile, people shriek and run away from the mention of its very name. Yes, my friends, I'm talking about none other than the evil, the deadly, the disgusting you-know-who. The next yaoi, it doesn't even deserve that name. More like the next monstrosity created by the fucking devil that I watched was the infamous Boku no Pico. So, any old school weebs are out there, you might recall that back in the day there was a meme that emerged from the depths of the anime society.
Don't watch an anime called Boku.
A meme so popular that got around to spreading everywhere on the internet. As weebs started to be born, they asked for recommendations of the internet. And for some ungodly reason, some dickweeds thought it was very funny to recommend one of the most cursed things to ever come out of the internet. At least at that time, which was Boku no Pico. I saw it everywhere, but I didn't exactly know what it was. I thought it was just some really bad anime, like School Days or something. So I put it on. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? It can't be that bad, right? Right? Oh my god. What I saw traumatized pure, innocent young me. I watched the whole 17 minutes of that first episode. Before I finally snapped out of it and was able to turn it off. I think it's the very first piece of porn I've ever watched, actually, now that I think about it. I didn't even know hentai was a thing back then. Ecchi, yes, but not hentai. Before that dreadful ice creams car scene, I try to watch the damn thing from a critical point of view, as I always did at that point. Fucking Boku no Pico, guys! Can you imagine watching it in a critical point of view? That's fucking impossible! So yeah, pretty bad experience for my first prawn. My poor maiden soul was trying to comprehend the whole time. What on earth am I watching here? I just couldn't believe someone would make something so disgusting and vile. After I finally managed to process it, I closed the tab, deleted my browser history, went into a corner in my room and started rocking back and forth, mumbling, "I'm never watching Yaoi again. I'm never watching Yaoi again." And I really didn't, for an extremely long time. I felt disgusted that the medium I loved so much would have areas like this one that were so dark and disgusting. Thankfully, I got over it with time. Funny enough, one of the things that helped me forget about it was Lucky Star. It's like the complete opposite because it was so sweet and innocent that it kinda helped me delete the bad memories from my head. I realized that just because this sinful thing existed, that didn't mean it represented all of Yaoi. So once enough time passed, I slowly started getting into the medium again. One of the things that helped me get back into Yaoi was a friend I made from a lower grade than me. She was not only my first Fujoshi friend, but she was also my first anime friend as well. So we bonded a lot back then. She introduced me to this game called Dramatical Murder, which was a very spicy yaoi visual novel. Unfortunately, getting a copy of it in general was extremely difficult, especially translated. She finally managed to get one in Japanese, but to me it was too much hassle to try. I did watch the anime though, and that was pretty much my first BL disappointment. The anime was nothing like the game. The only BL thing was a single kiss in episode 3. The story wasn't even interesting. There was truly nothing to salvage there. Another BL that came out at that time that I watched was Love Stage, which at that time I liked fine, but I could tell from memory and my diary entry that young pubescent me was getting a little bit tired just of the lovey-dovey stuff. And I quote, "I like that the relationship between the characters is constantly growing. Mutual between characters, lacking that stubbornness and pride that the ukes all had in Sekaiichi and Junjo. The uke here knows what he wants and gets it. Also, the seme doesn't obligate the uke to do anything, even though a little bit of... Wait, hold on. I did not say that. Oh god. Even though a little bit of rape would have been nice. Really? Dude, really? You really just said that? Oh god. Well, to be honest, I think that's mostly from my friend's influence. I was definitely going through a path of degeneracy. Not that I would approve of anything like this in real life, of course, I want to make that very clear. This is just a fantasy for me, and for many other people, I'm sure. But anyway, moving on. What I didn't like was the fact that there is way too much censoring. I mean, come on, let me see a little bit of naughty things. And what's with the weird cotton candy color censoring? I want to see some dick, damn it! I want a sauce, man. Give me that sauce! Oh god. I remember this period well. I stayed away from things such as pornography as a teen because I was too embarrassed by it. So I put all my naughty cards into yaoi expecting it to satisfy all of my needs. After this period, I really started getting into BL and yaoi OVAs because since they were short, a lot of them were not censored. Not to mention they were easy to digest. Mostly. The first OVA BL I watched, however, was one that completely destroyed my heart with its emotional and beautifully sad short stories. So after the success of Junjo's Sekaiichi, the mangaka decided to make a one-shot fanfiction of the two mangas, where her characters are all in the Edo period. But it's more technologically advanced, cause these dolls called hybrid childs exist, that look like and act like humans, but they're dolls. Honestly, from memory, it's one of the most creative elements I've seen in a yaoi. I think it's really interesting that such a thing was put in the Edo period. This isn't even something we have today yet. But anyways, these OVAs were fucking beautiful, man. They were adapted into 4 episodes, being the last 2 a 2-parter with the predecessors of freaking Takano and Onodana from Sekaiichi. My favorite yaoi boys. Man, those 2 episodes made me feel like
I still love you.
Yep, just like that. Immaculate. Best part is that it's a 10 out of 10, even though you don't know nothing about the previous series. I watched the last two OVAs with an ex of mine, and he almost cried just like me. Overall, really good stuff that I recommend. After this, I was met with the first and one of my biggest disappointments with BL, and that is with the anime number 6. The opening is one of the best ones I've ever heard. Not just the opening though, all the music in this anime is good, especially all the songs that were sang by the characters. I also really love this anime's story and characters. Speaking of which, I adored this anime's characters and its story. I used to be obsessed with Shion X Nezumi. I think it was one of my first ships. However, this was a disappointment to me because the truth is that number 6 isn't really a BL, much less a yaoi, especially according to the author. There are many anime, manga, and even manhwa out there that do have these homosexual elements in them, but the story is barely about that, so in the end, they can't really be considered BL. I mean, you can if you want to, I'm not your dad. But the fact still stands. Couples can be canon, headcanon, or straight up not a couple at all. And just fan service for ships. For me, these two characters were perfect for each other, and I wish more than anything back in the day for them to be together. But alas, that wasn't quite the case. But regardless of all of that, like I said, this anime was amazing. I feel like it's one of the few I would actually watch again. So I highly recommend it to anybody, not just Fujos and Fujins like myself, to give it a go. The next BL I watched was the first one ever that I didn't finish. Pico doesn't really count. And that is Loveless. I think one of the funniest things I realized after a while of watching yaoi is that 80% of the time, if there's love in the title, it's probably gonna suck. Getting back to the reliable younger me, my Loveless review can be described as this. This was a shitty yaoi. All of the characters are absolute crap without none of them being even likable. The plot, feelings, actions, and decisions of characters aren't even clear. Hence, I decided not to finish it. If there is no sense to it anywhere, there's no point in watching it. Wise words indeed, young me. Wise words indeed. Yet I still stubbornly finished a lot of anime I didn't like in my youth because of my completionist complex. But anyways, as you can guess, this is not only my opinion on BL, but any story as well. If I'm going to watch 12 episode series of anything, it has to be good. I don't care if it's bad good or trash good. It has to be enjoyable. Boring content is never worth paying too much attention to, unless your objective is telling people how horrible it is so they don't have to watch it. Which, funny enough, is what I'm doing right now. Unfortunately, this wasn't the only yaoi I didn't finish. I watched 3 episodes of Gravitation as well, because I saw that the YouTuber Octadearest talked about it a few times, saying it was one of her favorite yaoi, or at the very least, good. And by God, I am so sorry, Aki. This was fucking garbage, mate. The pacing is cancerously bad. It's way too fast. Characters do 180s from freaking nothing, dude. Speaking of which, the characters suck as well. And not the good suck. I'm just theorizing here, but I think she probably thinks it's good out of nostalgia. Or maybe she just hasn't seen a lot of yaoi. Now that we talked about BL I didn't finish, let's talk about some that I did finish by some miracle. But I didn't think it was all that great. Starting with the first one, Yami no Matsui. Or, as I apparently liked calling it, Ghost Story's bastard gay cousin. The yaoi is shoehorned and completely unnecessary. It serves no purpose, and it's only really there as a sad attempt of putting some salt in a sad attempt of a dish. Many parts of the story started getting more and more complicated to the point that I didn't understand many of the bits that were going on. It just straight up drops the gun for the setup of the world without any proper building to it. Like we're supposed to know where all these characters and worlds already are. It can't even do the whole paranormal things properly. For example, the MCs are all dead, but also they're not? Like, how does that work? That's never explained. Anyways, this was forgettable garbage, like many other yaoi series are. I feel like around this period, my critic eye evolved greatly as well. Depending on the time that I watched some of these BL shows, I might have enjoyed it. Just like I enjoyed shows like SAO and Tokyo Ghoul when I was first starting out. But that doesn't mean I'm going to show them any pit. If they're bad, they're bad. And that's that. So moving on to something mildly better, but only mildly. Being super lovers. From what I remember with this one was that it was a relationship between two brothers, one of which is adopted, making them not blood related. The Japanese seem to have a really strong kick with this whole incest thing. And siblings not related by blood is their favorite way to make the whole situation feel a lot less degenerate. It's a bit of an odd situation, especially if you put yourself in the character's shoes. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty fair thing to accept as not sinful. However, that's not the only controversial thing going on in this anime. The age gap between the characters is 6 to 8 years. We've established before that my thoughts on that are also fine. However, there is another curveball. The uke is 16 years old. Yes, technically age of consent in Japan, but not for me, mister. I mean, for the love of God. The beginning of the series, the Seme met him when he was 8 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, the Seme was a pretty big brother / father figure for the uke, making things really awkward and complicated. This is all fantasy, of course, but the fact that the uke looks so damn young and everything I stated above just makes me feel really uncomfortable with the series. Even if there was nothing saucy going on except for kissing. But that's already a lot to me in this case. The characters themselves and story wasn't anything special either. My review for this anime actually really caught my eye because it was a little bit different from the others. Here, I wrote, I'm honestly starting to notice a pattern in the Shonen Ai series. When it comes to plot, characters, etc., they're all generic, boring, and or overall garbage, so there isn't much to criticize here. I still agree with this today. As I got older, my critiques abilities got better, which means I started to see that something about BL felt completely lazy at times. And part of me feels like that's because it's such a niche medium of entertainment, since there's not a lot of people that consume it. It's mostly a small percentage of female otakus. There is another thing. Japan isn't the most LGBT positive country in the world, even if they do have a lot of media covering it. So if they're going to invest in taboo ecchi hentai topics, they will most likely be targeted at straight men. Things that even non-anime lovers would enjoy in the hentai category. I mean, come on, everybody knows women don't watch porn. They're all innocent, pure little daisies with hair bangs that poop rainbows. This is all speculation, of course. So take everything I said with a pinch of salt. Anywho, BL, for its demographic, feels like fast food anime at times. To clarify, what I call fast food anime are shows that are easy to watch because they don't require a lot of thought or brain to digest, like certain shonen. Not to mention catering to fantasies, even they are unrealistic or senseless. But mostly, it revolves around moe and slice of life anime. because of all of this, I took an enormous break from BL. I have a full notebook that doesn't have one single BL yaoi entry on it. I was disappointed and sick of the medium. I got completely out of touch with the Fujoshi fandom, so if there was anything new and interesting going on, I wouldn't know about it. I moved on to watching hentai to get my sauce fix, which wasn't often, but somehow still more reliable than my disappointments with BL and yaoi, and the lack thereof. Later, with the passing years, I started becoming more aware, thanks to certain YouTube vids like T-Dog's VA's Reading Yaoi series, that if I ever wanted to go back to the medium, the strongest place I would find it, with the best content, would be manga and manhwa. Like I said before, I never really enjoyed the medium of manga too much. Images are still, they have no color, voice acting, music, or any of that stuff. I'm a big auditory and visual person, so manga just doesn't do it for me. Maybe one day I'll go back to that period of my life and get the energy and desire to seek out yaoi manga. But, knowing me, I probably won't. I've gotten older and gotten interested in other things. Puberty ended a long-ass time ago for me, so that craving and desperate desire for cuteness and lewdness disappeared as I matured. And no, I'm not saying that liking this stuff is immature. It's completely fine if you're 40 and you still feel the doki dokis in your heart whenever you look at BL or some bubble stories. I still do. I always will, but with moderation. I mean, even if I'm older now, I still feel the butterflies by watching certain BL stories and moments. They do make me happy, but the market is dim when it comes to yaoi, and it's dimmer even still to find good stuff. So alas, that is my present position on it. I've had lots of great times with it, so I'll always keep the fond memories of my rotten person yaoi taste deep inside my heart. So eventually, I watched 2 more BL shows later on. But before I talk about those, in the middle of all my chaotic quests, trying to find cute little stories of BL and nice delicious sauce, I watched a dozen different yaoi BL OVAs. Unfortunately, it seems that I didn't really write about these in my notebook, because, I guess in my mind, they weren't journal worthy since they were short. I regret that now, because I feel like I would have said a lot more about some of them, more than certain other full-fledged series I watched. I feel like this was the only rule I ever created for anime that wasn't worth talking about in my notebook. That is truly a shame, because there are some really good ones out there. I mean, I've reviewed a dozen unfinished anime for fuck's sake, so why not this one? But anyways, since I didn't do any writing, the least I could do was give some honorable mentions to the ones I remember. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Yaoi Over Lightning Round! Warning, some of these are straight up hentai. Proceed with caution. That being said, without further ado, Sex Pistols. Seen as the band has nothing to do with it. Yaoi about some dudes that are half animal, if I remember correctly. They can't get pregnant. It was just meh, nothing amazing. The tyrant falls in love. Seme accidentally gives the uke an aphrodisiac and then emotionally manipulates him to fall in love with him. The sauce is very hot. I recommend it. Papa to kiss in the dark. Not a fan. Not his actual dad, but still his uncle. Still incest, still gross. Sensitive pornograph. Literally yaoi hentai. Uncensored. Very nice if you're a league of age. Yedichin Bitch Club. Same thing as sensitive pornograph, but not as good in my opinion. Still enjoyable. Hey Class President. Another one that has a lot of erotic and sexy scenes like the Tyrant one, but between high schoolers instead of college students. I like this one. Embracing Love. Really meh? Big guy classical yaoi designs. It's about gay prawn actors. Only really remember this one scene I thought that was interesting, which was a foursome and the uke from the second couple for too emotional and couldn't go on with it. I thought it was cute. Maiden Rose. Edo period BL. I honestly don't remember much except for that. Also, all yaoi art. Don't assume it was boring. Papadate Shintai. There's a hentai version of it, but it's censored. I need an uncensored version of this, and it bothers me that there isn't one.
タイトロープ
The only thing I remember about this one is the fact that the Uke's dad is a Yakuza boss and the Seme is his childhood friend guardian. I don't remember the plot of this, nor if it's saucy, but I don't think it was bad. Winter Cigara. This is another Edo period yaoi. Damn, there seem to be a lot of this, aren't they? After Hybrid Child, this one was my favorite OVA yaoi series. The story is really good. It's tragic, romantic, and extremely well written and made. Love the characters. The animation is old. It's the short's weak point. But it really doesn't matter, because it really compensates with everything else. I recommend this above all the others, to be completely honest. Hate myself for not writing about it in my journal because it was really that good. I did it. Probably have seen a handful of other ones, but honestly forgot their names and I couldn't find them again. But I think that does is a pretty good number though. So, to conclude, let's get into the last 2 BL I watched, starting with Hirojime My Hero. This was the first yaoi that I watched after giving it a long break. I felt like a boomer Fujin and I had this whole inner monologue in my head the first time I heard about it. It went a little bit like this. Oh yes, that lovely medium that is yaoi. Back in the day, I used to watch many of those, but half of them sucked. People actually like this one. It's not awful. Well, it's modern, so maybe they did something good for once. But no, what if it's the same crap all over again? Oh, check this out, Grandpa Misaki. This one's really good. And then it ends up sucking like the rest of them. But it's been so long, and I kinda miss the times me and good old yaoi had back in the day. Alright, fine, I'll watch it. And my god, guys, it was completely and absolutely okay. Wait, don't go, hear me out. When I was younger, I said that a lot of yaoi were okay in my journals, but ended up not being so good as I grew older. This one is genuinely okay, and that's not a bad thing. It's not special, but I think it did a really good job. It did the most important thing it had to do. The only thing I hoped from yaoi at this point. Leave me satisfied. It's not ecchi, it's focused mostly on romance. And it displays it with a modern, realistic, sincere way, which made me very content, at least the main couple. This series has 2 couples, unfortunately, and the latter is... basically the stereotypical unhealthy yaoi couple. The seme emotionally manipulates the uke to end up with him, and that's all fine and dandy to a certain extent or whatever, because there are many yaoi that I enjoy that have these unhealthy couples for the sake of fantasy and just being saucy. But Jesus Christ, I genuinely don't remember ever witnessing such an unlikable BL character in my life, dude. He didn't make me angry or anything. I don't think I've ever reached that point. But he is such a fucking dick to literally anyone who isn't his boyfriend. And for no reason either. He has no likable personality traits whatsoever. He's just a typical pretty boy douche. Only difference being that he's gay. If he hadn't forced a relationship on his uke, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be together. The uke's a bit of a potato too, but more likable than the seme. But anyways, those lame characters aside, let's talk about the main relationship. The one between the teacher and the student. They've actually known each other before the teacher was, well, a teacher. I think he even saved his life if I remember that correctly. To me, this relationship seemed genuinely believable, and the characters were very well written for once. In my journal, I said that I didn't know whether I felt my heart go doki doki because this BL genuinely deserved it, or because it just had been that long. But I've seen bad BL before, and this was not it. I guarantee that much. One of the cool things about this as well is that it dives deeper into modern discussions about homosexual love, But since it is a new generation, it portrays it in that perspective. I think it brings good conversations between the youths of Japan. So I really like this show. And I would say any Fujin would too. Also, apparently there's a really funny, awkward running animation in there somewhere, so look out for that if you're ever watching it. The second anime I wanted to talk about was Given, which is one of my favorite BL stories ever, to be honest. Again, not life-changing, but definitely top 5 BL for sure. The characters are all not only bishy as fuck, but have great personalities. I like Hiroshime. It dives into commentary about homosexual relationships, but this one goes beyond that. The way they do it is through a song that talks about the secret backstory of the main character, and it's just everything that was happening in this anime was leading up to the very moment, and it was immaculate. I love that song so much, man. But anyways, it wasn't just that moment. Everything else about this anime was awesome as well. From all the music, to the comedy, to the secondary love dilemma in the show, and more. I only had 2 issues with this anime. The fact that there was some 3D animation in the band playing scenes, which I don't particularly love too much, and the last 2 episodes. See, the climax of this movie happened in the 9th episode. So since the epic adrenaline-filling conclusion already happened, episodes 10 and 11 felt more like filler, but it wasn't, of course. Some knots needed to be tied before the season ended, but it still felt that way. I wouldn't know a particular solution to it, however. Maybe make the last 2 episodes into a single one, or maybe somehow incorporate parts of it before the climax. I don't know. But with all that said, Given was wonderful. I couldn't recommend it enough. So to be honest with you guys, there is one more BL I watched. It's a movie. You might even know what it is or have a very good guess. But the reason I left this one out is because, to me, it was the most special and my favorite BL story ever made. I never thought that anything would top my loving soft spot for Sekaiichi. But there is one, and that is... find out next week with a special video just for it! Yes, I'm sorry to leave you hanging, but this video is so long already. I'm pretty sure there's some people sighing out there like, oh my god, it's finally over. So I do apologize for the long video. I didn't originally plan for it to be that long. But I guess that means I just had a lot more to say about yaoi than I originally thought. But yes, my dear friends, with this, I conclude this video. So what are my final thoughts? Well, BL and yaoi were a huge part of my life growing up. I've had my biggest highs and lows with it, and that's okay. No genre is perfect, and appreciated for what it is. But now, I retire from my title as a Fujin, and leave this journey to continue on to the new generations. Hope all of you Fujoshis, Fujanshis, and fellow Fujins have fun with it as well. And remember, play safe, and for the love of God, don't watch Boku no Pico. So yeah, that was my video on my journey as a Fujin. Hope y'all enjoyed it. So, I leave y'all with a question. What is your favorite BL of all time? Leave those comments below. I read every single one. If you like this video, please consider supporting the channel by liking, subscribing, sharing the video, and spreading the word. And support the people who contributed to making this video as well. All the links will be left in the description. That being said, I hope you have a wonderful evening. See you later, cousins. TTFN.